Choose a color, any color. Purple, blue, red, yellow. Don't think. Just feel which one pulls at something inside you. Because Carl Gustav Jung discovered that what draws you reveals what you've hidden, even from yourself. This isn't about preference, it's about recognition. Your psyche speaking in a language older than words. Colors are symbols, and symbols, Jung warned, are the only way the unconscious can communicate with the conscious mind. They bypass your defenses, your rationalizations, all the stories you tell yourself about who you are. When you choose a color without thinking, you're not choosing at all. You're responding to something that lives beneath your awareness. Jung spent decades analyzing why certain symbols appeared in his patients' dreams, why specific colors haunted their waking thoughts. He found patterns, archetypes, universal languages of the soul that transcended culture, time, and individual experience. But here's what disturbed him most. People always chose symbols that reflected the exact parts of themselves they were trying to escape. The violent man dreamed in red, the depressed woman surrounded herself with gray, the spiritually starving sought purple like a drug. Your choice isn't random, it's a confession. So look at these 4 colors. Purple, blue, red, yellow. Which one feels like it's already inside you? Which one makes your chest tighten just slightly when you see it? That's the one. That's your shadow speaking. And what it reveals will be more accurate than anything you'd admit out loud. Purple chose you because you've spent your entire life feeling like an exile. Not physically, psychologically. You look at the world and see people content with surfaces, small talk, shallow goals, lives built on foundations that would crumble under one honest question. And you can't do it. Jung called this the curse of individuation, the psychological process of becoming whole. Most people never begin it. They live in fragments, comfortable in their incompleteness, never questioning why they feel empty. But you started the process whether you wanted to or not. Probably young, probably painfully. Something in you refused to accept easy answers. You looked at religion and found rules without truth. You looked at success and found achievement without meaning. You looked at relationships and found connection without depth. So you withdrew, not out of arrogance, out of survival. Because pretending to care about things that don't matter feels like dying slowly, and you'd rather be alone than dead inside. This is what purple means. Not spirituality, not mystery, exile from consensus reality. Jung knew this intimately. He spent years isolated from the psychiatric community because his ideas were too disturbing, too honest. He descended into what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period where he nearly lost his mind exploring depths that most people spend their lives avoiding. He emerged understanding something crucial. The people drawn to depth aren't special, they're wounded. Something broke their ability to accept comfortable lies. And that break never heals, it just becomes who you are. You feel everything too much. Not emotions exactly. Energies, the unspoken tension in a room, the desperation behind someone's smile, the hollowness inside success stories that everyone else celebrates. This isn't a gift, it's exhausting. You keep your circle small because most people drain you. Not because they're bad, because they're asleep. And being around sleeping people when you're awake feels like suffocating. When you do let someone in, you love them with an intensity that frightens them. Because you don't love surfaces, you love souls. And most people aren't ready to be loved that completely. Jung warned about this too. He said the process of individuation is fundamentally lonely, because you're becoming something most people will never understand. You're integrating parts of yourself that others have successfully buried forever. Your creativity isn't about making beautiful things. It's about making the invisible visible. Translating experiences that have no words. Building bridges from your inner world to outer reality. But here's the shadow you won't admit. You're addicted to your own depth. You've made your complexity into an identity. And sometimes you use it as a weapon, to feel superior, to justify isolation, to avoid the ordinary human work of just being present with imperfect people. Jung saw this in himself. He called it inflation. When you identify too strongly with archetypal energies, you lose your humanity. You become the mystic, the visionary, the misunderstood genius. And you forget you're also just a person who needs connection, routine, and simple joys. Your challenge isn't to find more depth, you're drowning in depth. Your challenge is to surface occasionally, to let yourself be ordinary, to love people who don't understand you, and stop requiring that they do. Because the deepest spiritual truth Jung ever taught was this: individuation doesn't mean transcending humanity. It means accepting it completely. All of it. The profound and the mundane, the mystical and the boring, the extraordinary and the ordinary. Purple means you're capable of seeing what others miss, but it also means you're in danger of missing what everyone else sees: the small kindnesses, the simple pleasures, the grace in just existing without always searching for meaning. You were not meant to be understood by everyone, but you were also not meant to be alone forever. Blue called to you because you're terrified of your own anger. Not the anger everyone sees. You've mastered control, mastered diplomacy, mastered the art of keeping everything smooth, calm, manageable. But underneath that ocean of peace lives a rage so deep you've never let yourself feel it fully. Jung discovered this pattern in patient after patient. The peaceful ones, the harmonious ones, the people everyone trusted and relied on. They came to him with mysterious symptoms: unexplained anxiety, sudden panic attacks, physical illness with no medical cause. And when he dug deeper, he always found the same thing: a lifetime of swallowed words, suppressed reactions, authentic feelings buried alive to keep the peace. You chose blue because you've built your entire identity around not being a problem, around making others comfortable, around creating harmony, even when it costs you everything. This isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to be acceptable. For most people, the persona is just a role they play at work or in public. But for you, the persona has consumed your personality entirely. You've forgotten there's a difference between who you are and who you think you should be. Here's what nobody tells you about being the calm one, the stable one, the person everyone leans on. You're slowly disappearing. Every time you swallow anger to avoid conflict, a piece of your authentic self dies. Every time you accommodate someone else's comfort at the expense of your own truth, you betray yourself. Every time you choose peace over honesty, you carve away your soul. And you call this maturity, growth, emotional intelligence. Jung would call it psychological suicide, because the anger you're suppressing isn't just anger, it's life force. It's the energy that says, I matter, my needs matter, my truth matters. Without it, you're not peaceful, you're empty. You attract people who need your stability, your listening ear, your endless patience. But notice something: they never ask what you need, they never have to, because you've trained them that you need nothing. This is why your relationships feel one-sided, not because people are using you, because you've made yourself useful instead of real. Jung worked with a woman once who prided herself on never causing problems, never raising her voice, always understanding everyone else's perspective. She developed severe physical symptoms that doctors couldn't explain. In therapy, Jung helped her access the rage she'd suppressed for decades. The moment she actually screamed the truth she'd been swallowing, her symptoms vanished. Her body had been screaming for her because she wouldn't scream for herself. Your blue isn't the color of peace, it's the color of a frozen ocean. And underneath that ice, currents of suppressed emotion are building pressure. This is your shadow, the part Jung said we most need to integrate. You've disowned your capacity for destruction, for messiness, for saying no without explanation, for disappointing people, for being difficult. And in disowning it, you've given it control over your entire life. Every boundary you don't set is the shadow growing stronger. Every authentic feeling you suppress is another stone in the wall separating you from yourself. You think you're avoiding conflict, you're creating internal war. Here's what integration looks like: not becoming angry, not losing your gift for seeing all perspectives, but allowing yourself to have one, your perspective, your truth, even when it disrupts harmony. Especially when it disrupts harmony, because false peace is violence against yourself. Jung taught that the goal isn't to eliminate the shadow, it's to bring it into consciousness, to look at the parts of yourself you've rejected and say, you belong to me too. Your anger belongs to you. Your selfishness belongs to you. your capacity to put yourself first belongs to you. Not to act on them blindly, but to acknowledge them. To let them inform your choices instead of control you from the darkness. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who express anger. They're the ones who deny they have it. Because unexpressed anger doesn't disappear. It goes underground, and it sabotages everything from the shadows. Your passive aggression, your mysterious illnesses, your exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, your depression that has no clear cause. These aren't symptoms of peace, they're symptoms of a civil war. You're losing. Blue chose you as a warning. You're drowning in your own accommodation, and if you don't start speaking your truth, your body will speak it for you, in ways you won't be able to ignore. Red grabbed you because you're running from emptiness, not towards something, away from the void that opens up the moment you stop moving. Jung saw this in patients who lived at full volume, the ambitious ones, the passionate ones, the ones who seemed more alive than everyone else, until they crashed. Because their intensity wasn't vitality, it was terror with a pulse. You chose red because you've discovered that momentum feels like meaning, that if you're always chasing, fighting, loving, building, burning, you never have to face the question underneath all of it. What if none of this matters? This is the secret red people never admit. Your fire isn't confidence, it's avoidance. You've turned life into a drug, and you're addicted to the high of feeling alive. Because when you stop, when you're alone with yourself in silence, something unbearable surfaces. The suspicion that you're empty inside. Jung called this identification with the ego. When your sense of self depends entirely on what you do, what you achieve, how intensely you experience everything, you're not living, you're performing. And the performance never ends, because the audience is you. You wake up with urgency, goals, plans, things that must be done, people who must be impressed, experiences that must be consumed. You mistake this urgency for purpose. It's panic. The panic of someone who knows that if they slow down, they'll have to feel what they've been outrunning their entire life. Your relationships burn hot because you don't know how to love quietly. You need the intensity, the drama, the proof that you're feeling something real. But Jung warned about this type of love. He said when you need someone to make you feel alive, you're not loving them. You're using them as medicine for your emptiness. And when the intensity fades, as it always does, you mistake the absence of drama for the absence of love. So you leave, or sabotage, or create crisis. Anything to get the feeling back, because the feeling is all you trust. Here's what you don't see. The emptiness you're running from isn't a problem. It's the doorway to your actual self. Jung spent years studying what he called the confrontation with the unconscious. He discovered that everyone who individuates must eventually face the void, the moment where all your achievements, all your intensity, all your identity dissolves, and you stand there with nothing. Most people run. They fill the void with more action, more noise, more proof that they exist. But the ones who stay, who sit in that unbearable emptiness without flinching, discover something shocking. The void isn't empty, it's full of everything you've been too busy to notice. Your red isn't strength, it's compensation, for a quietness inside you that you've decided means death. But Jung found the opposite was true. The people who couldn't tolerate silence were the ones slowly dying inside. Because they never met themselves, they only met their momentum. You fear boredom, like it's a terminal diagnosis. Routine feels like suffocation. Stillness feels like failure. This is your shadow screaming at you. The part of you that's exhausted, that wants to rest, that's tired of proving, performing, pursuing. The part that knows you could disappear tomorrow and the world would continue exactly as it is. And that terrifies you more than anything. Because if your intensity doesn't matter, if your passion doesn't change the world, if your fire doesn't leave a mark, then what was the point of burning yourself alive? Jung would tell you this: the point was never the burning, it was what you'd discover in the ashes. Your worth isn't in your output. Your value isn't in your intensity. Your existence doesn't need justification through constant proof of life. You are already whole, already enough, already real. But you'll never know that while you're running. The integration of your shadow means learning to stop, to sit with yourself without distraction, to feel the emptiness without trying to fill it, and to discover that what you've been calling emptiness is actually peace. The red person's greatest fear is irrelevance, being forgotten, disappearing into the ordinary masses of people who never really lived. But Jung discovered something crucial. The people most afraid of being ordinary are running from the only thing that could save them. The permission to be human, flawed, quiet, unremarkable, and still worthy of existence. Your fire will burn you out if you don't learn this, not metaphorically, literally. Your body will force the rest you won't give yourself. Red chose you as a warning. Slow down before you crash. Feel the emptiness before it swallows you whole. Because the only way to truly live is to stop running from death. Yellow found you because you've made optimism into armor. And armor, no matter how bright, is still a prison. You chose yellow because somewhere along the way you decided that darkness wasn't allowed. That pain was weakness, that if you just stayed positive enough, believed hard enough, smiled through enough suffering, you could bypass the human experience entirely. Jung would call this spiritual bypassing, and he saw it destroy people. Not quickly, slowly. The way a plant dies when you give it only sunlight and no soil. You wake up with hope because you're terrified of what happens if you don't. The moment you stop moving towards something better, towards something more, toward the next achievement or adventure or transformation, you'll have to face where you actually are. And where you are isn't enough, has never been enough, will never be enough. This is the yellow person's secret. Your positivity isn't natural, it's compulsive. You're not optimistic, you're allergic to despair. Jung spent years analyzing what he called the inflation of the persona. When someone identifies completely with light, with growth, with potential, they split off their darkness so violently that it gains independent power. Your shadow isn't your negativity, your shadow is your humanity. All the feelings you've labeled as unacceptable, the jealousy, the rage, the hopelessness, the desire to give up, the moments when you look at your life and feel absolutely nothing. You've buried these so deep that you've convinced yourself they don't exist. But Jung warned that what we refuse to acknowledge doesn't disappear. It calcifies, becomes autonomous, starts living its own life in the basement of your psyche. This is why you can't sit still, why rest feels like regression, why you need constant stimulus, constant growth, constant proof that you're moving forward. Because if you stop, the basement door opens, and everything you've been running from comes flooding up. Your relationships are exhausting because you've made yourself responsible for everyone's emotional weather. You're the one who lifts the mood, shifts the energy, reminds people to see the bright side. But notice something. When do you get to collapse? Never. Because you've built an identity around being the light. And light doesn't get to be dark. Light doesn't get to be tired. Light doesn't get to say, I can't hold this anymore. So you burn, quietly, constantly, until you're not light at all. You're just heat with nothing left to illuminate. Jung treated a patient once who lived exactly like this, relentlessly positive, always growing, never allowing herself to feel anything that couldn't be transformed into a lesson or opportunity. She came to him after a complete breakdown, not a dramatic one, a quiet dissolving. She woke up one day and couldn't remember why she was trying so hard, what she was growing toward, why any of it mattered. Jung told her something that shattered her. You're not depressed, you're exhausted from pretending the darkness doesn't exist. Your yellow isn't joy, it's a defense mechanism against a grief so profound you've never let yourself feel it. Maybe it started early, maybe you learned that sadness made people uncomfortable, that your pain was a burden, that if you weren't easy, bright, hopeful, you weren't lovable. So you became the sunrise, every single day, no matter how you felt inside. And now you can't stop, because you've forgotten how to be anything else. This is the shadow yellow people never see. Your positivity is violence against yourself. Every time you spiritualize your suffering instead of feeling it, you betray yourself. Every time you look for the lesson before you've grieved the loss, you abandon yourself. Every time you fake hope when you need to scream, you die a little more. Jung said individuation requires descent into the darkness, into the places we've been avoiding, into the feelings we've decided are unacceptable. But you've built your entire life around ascent, always up, always forward, always better. And you're terrified that if you descend, you'll never come back up. Here's the truth. Jung discovered, the only people who stay lost in darkness are the ones who never go there willingly, the ones who get dragged down by breakdown, by illness, by collapse. But the ones who choose to descend, who sit with their despair instead of medicating it with positivity, who let themselves be human instead of always becoming, they find something you've never known. Actual peace. Not the performance of peace, not the belief in peace, the real thing, which exists only in the place where you stop trying. Your fear of failure isn't about achievement, it's about identity. Because if you fail, if you stop growing, if you admit you don't have the answers, who are you? Just a person, flawed, limited, uncertain, real. And you've decided that's not enough. But Jung spent his entire career proving the opposite. That wholeness doesn't come from transcending our limitations. It comes from accepting them completely. Your shadow is waiting for you. In the stillness you avoid. In the darkness you refuse. In the moments when you have nothing to offer and nowhere to grow. Yellow chose you as a warning. Your light is burning you alive. And the only way to survive is to let yourself go dark. Not forever, just long enough to remember that darkness isn't death. Sometimes it's the only place where truth can grow. You know what these 4 colors just revealed? Not who you are, what you've been avoiding. Purple people avoid the ordinary human need for simple connection. Blue people avoid the messy reality that truth doesn't always serve love. Red people avoid the terrifying peace that comes when you stop running. Yellow people avoid the darkness that would actually set them free. Jung discovered that every psychological pattern is simultaneously a gift and a prison. Your color doesn't define you. It shows you the bars you can't see. But here's what happens when you understand why someone behaves the way they do. When you can read the attachment patterns behind their actions. When you see the nervous system operating beneath the surface. Knowing your pattern is just the beginning, but reading theirs is where psychology gets dangerous. Watch this video.